Between China and the United States, there is no wall, no border, and no single front line. Instead, there is a chain of islands. Stretching from Japan through Taiwan and down to the Philippines, this arc is known as the First Island Chain. Every major segment of this chain is controlled or aligned with allies of the United States. It is not a political invention. It is a geographic reality shaped by coastlines, straits, and shallow seas. On the western side of this island chain lies China's economic core. Shanghai, Ningbo, and the Pearl River Delta all sit directly behind it. On the eastern side lies the open Pacific, where the United States and its allies operate freely. This creates a structural contrast between two superpowers. China is a continental power, whose access to the ocean is filtered through US-aligned islands. The United States is a maritime power positioned along this chain through allies such as Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines. The First Island Chain therefore functions as an invisible boundary, not a wall that blocks movement, but a geographic line that channels power, trade, and military access. At the center of this boundary sits Taiwan, not only as a political issue, but as the most critical geographic position within a US-aligned island chain. To understand why this matters, we must begin with geography. Because this boundary existed long before modern rivalry, and it still shapes it today. To understand the First Island Chain, we must set strategy aside and look at the physical landscape itself. The First Island Chain is not a single island group. It is a continuous arc of land formed by tectonic activity along the edge of the Eurasian continent. This arc runs from the Japanese archipelago in the north, through the Ryukyu Islands in Taiwan, and down to the Philippines. Geographically, it marks the boundary between two very different maritime environments. To the west of the chain lies shallow continental shelf seas. These include the East China Sea and the northern South China Sea. Their average depths are measured in tens or hundreds of meters, not thousands. To the east of the chain, the seabed drops sharply into the deep Pacific Ocean. Here, depths quickly exceed several thousand meters. This contrast is not gradual, it is abrupt, and it is critical. The First Island Chain is punctuated by narrow straits that connect these two environments. Among the most important are the Miyako Strait, the Taiwan Strait, and the Luzon Strait. These straits are not man-made choke points. They are fixed geographic features shaped by plate tectonics and sea level change. Their widths, depths, and currents determine how ships and submarines can move between coastal seas and the open ocean. The island chain, therefore, does not block access to the Pacific. It channels it. Every movement from China's coastal waters into the deep Pacific must pass through a limited number of predictable corridors. This is why the First Island Chain matters even in the age of satellites and long-range missiles. Modern technology has not erased geography. It has made its constraints more visible. The islands themselves are mountainous and narrow. Many rise sharply from the sea, offering natural elevation over surrounding waters. From a geographic perspective, this creates ideal locations for observation across air and sea routes. The First Island Chain, then, is not a line drawn by policymakers. It is a physical system of land, sea, and straits that has existed for millions of years. Long before modern states emerged in East Asia, long before the United States became a Pacific power, and long before China began its maritime expansion. Only after understanding this geography can we begin to understand why the First Island Chain plays such a decisive role in modern geopolitics, and why Taiwan, positioned at its center, carries such weight. Within the First Island Chain, not all islands carry the same geographic weight. Some reinforce the arc at its edges. One defines its center. That island is Taiwan. Geographically, Taiwan sits at the midpoint of the first island chain. To its north lie Japan and the Ryukyu Islands. To its south lie the Philippines and the Luzon Strait. No other island occupies such a central position within this arc. Taiwan also lies extremely close to the Asian mainland. At its narrowest point, the Taiwan Strait is roughly 130 kilometers wide. Across this strait lie China's coastal provinces, including Fujian, Guangdong, and Zhejiang. These provinces form part of China's industrial and export-oriented economic core. Major ports such as Shanghai, Ningbo Zhoushan, and Shenzhen all operate behind the first island chain. But Taiwan's importance is not only geographic, it is also economic and technological. Taiwan is home to companies that are essential to the global information economy. At the forefront is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. TSMC is the world's largest dedicated semiconductor foundry. It produces the majority of the world's most advanced logic chips, including chips at the 5 nanometer and 3 nanometer process nodes. As of recent industry data, TSMC accounted for more than 50% of the global foundry market by revenue and over 90% at the most advanced nodes. These chips are critical inputs for smartphones, data centers, artificial intelligence systems, and advanced defense electronics. Another major Taiwanese firm is MediaTek, one of the world's largest fabless chip designers. MediaTek designs system-on-chip solutions that power hundreds of millions of mobile devices, wireless communications products, and consumer electronics every year. In mobile chipset shipments, MediaTek has frequently ranked among the top global suppliers, often second only to major competitors in total unit volume. Together, Taiwanese technology companies contribute not only to global commerce, but to the infrastructure of modern industry itself. Taiwan's semiconductor capacity is deeply embedded in supply chains that span Asia, Europe, and the United States. This creates another layer of strategic importance. Control or disruption of Taiwan's advanced semiconductor production would have cascading effects on global manufacturing, communications, and military technology procurement. This influence is not abstract. It is measurable in market share, production capacity, and technological leadership. From a transportation perspective, Taiwan's location remains critical. Sea routes connecting Northeast and Southeast Asia pass near Taiwan's eastern and southern waters. Air routes linking Japan, China, and the Philippines converge in the same space. This geographic and technological connectivity reinforces Taiwan's central role in the first island chain. No other island combines strategic location with such economic and technological influence. Japan's islands anchor the northern end of the chain. The Philippines anchor the southern end, but Taiwan connects the entire system. Remove Taiwan, and the structural integrity of the first island chain is fundamentally altered. The first island chain does not affect all great powers in the same way. Its impact depends entirely on geographic position. For China, the island chain sits directly in front of its economic heartland. China's most productive regions are concentrated along its eastern coastline. The Yangtze River Delta, the Pearl River Delta, and the Bohai Rim together account for a large share of China's GDP and exports. Nearly all of China's major commercial ports are located behind the first island chain. This includes Shanghai, Ningbo Zhoushan, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Qingdao. As a result, China's access to the open ocean must pass through a limited number of straits. These exits are narrow, predictable, and geographically fixed. From an energy perspective, this creates vulnerability. China imports more than 70% of its oil by sea. Much of this energy passes through the South China Sea before reaching China's coastal ports. Any disruption along these maritime routes would directly affect China's economy and industrial output. The United States occupies a fundamentally different geographic position. It is bordered by two vast oceans. To the east lies the Atlantic Ocean, providing direct access to Europe and Africa. To the west lies the Pacific Ocean, providing direct access to East Asia. No island chain blocks the United States from either direction. American ports such as Los Angeles, Long Beach, Seattle, and Norfolk open directly onto deep-water ocean routes. This gives the United States strategic depth at sea. Its naval forces can operate outward rather than pushing through narrow corridors. This difference is reflected in naval posture. The United States maintains a global network of bases and logistics hubs across both oceans. China, by contrast, must project power outward from a confined coastal environment. The first island chain therefore functions as a geographic filter. It compresses China's maritime access while expanding the operational reach of the United States and its allies. This is why islands such as Okinawa, Taiwan, and northern Luzon matter beyond their size. They sit astride the routes China must use. For the United States, this geography provides leverage without requiring territorial control. For China, the same geography represents exposure and constraint. And it explains why the first island chain remains central to strategic planning on both sides of the Pacific. Facing the constraints of the first island chain, China has not relied on military solutions alone. Instead, it has pursued a parallel strategy on land. This strategy is known as the Belt and Road Initiative. Launched in 2013, the BRI aims to expand China's economic and logistical links across Eurasia, Africa, and parts of the Middle East. From a geographic perspective, its logic is straightforward. If maritime routes are vulnerable, land routes become insurance. Railways connecting China to Central Asia and Europe reduce dependence on sea lanes. Pipelines from Russia and Central Asia reduce exposure to maritime energy choke points. Ports developed in the Indian Ocean extend China's commercial reach beyond the first island chain. However, these routes do not replace the sea. Land transport remains more expensive and less efficient than maritime shipping for bulk trade. Pipelines cannot match the volume and flexibility of oil transported by tanker. And overseas ports do not eliminate the need to pass through contested waters. The BRI therefore functions as a hedge rather than a solution. It reduces risk at the margins, but it does not remove the structural reality imposed by geography. China's economy remains deeply dependent on maritime trade, and maritime access remains shaped by the first island chain. In this sense, the BRI reflects strategic caution rather than strategic freedom. It is a response to constraint, not proof of escape from it. This is where the contrast with the United States becomes even clearer. Because while China seeks alternatives to geography, the United States continues to benefit from geography itself. For the United States, the first island chain is not simply a line on the map. It is an operational system. Unlike China, the United States does not need to break the first island chain. It already operates on both sides of it. American power enters the Western Pacific through alliances rather than territory. Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Taiwan form a connected arc of strategic cooperation. These partners host ports, airfields, radar systems, and logistical infrastructure. Together, they create persistent situational awareness along China's maritime approaches. Nowhere is this more evident than in Japan. Okinawa hosts a significant concentration of U.S. air and naval forces. Its location allows rapid access to the East China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the Philippine Sea. Further south, the Philippines occupies a critical position near the Luzon Strait. This strait links the South China Sea to the open Pacific. Control and monitoring of this passage directly affect China's naval mobility. Taiwan sits at the center of this system. It overlooks both the Taiwan Strait and the approaches to the Philippine Sea. From a geographic perspective, Taiwan functions as a fixed observation platform. From a strategic perspective, it complicates Chinese naval planning. The United States does not need to station large permanent forces on Taiwan to benefit from this position. Its value lies in denial, not occupation. This reflects a broader American approach. Containment in this context does not mean blockade or isolation. It means monitoring, signaling, and selective control of key maritime spaces. The first island chain enables this at relatively low cost. It leverages allied geography rather than unilateral force. This also explains why freedom of navigation operations matter symbolically. They reinforce the principle that no single power controls these waters. For China, this environment creates uncertainty. Naval movements are observable, choke points are predictable, and escalation carries high regional risk. For the United States, the same environment provides flexibility. Its fleets can surge forward or operate at distance. Its supply lines are long but unconstrained. This asymmetry is not about intent. It is about structure. And structure, in geopolitics, often matters more than ambition. The first island chain is often described as something that can be broken. From a geographic perspective, this idea is misleading. Island chains are not walls. They are environments that shape how power moves. China can expand its navy and project greater force, but it cannot remove straits, distances, or coastlines. Maritime routes remain fixed. Choke points remain predictable. For the United States and its allies, the first island chain does not guarantee control. It provides leverage, not certainty. Alliances must be sustained, and escalation carries regional and economic costs. Taiwan remains central because of where it sits. It connects the East China Sea and the South China Sea. It anchors the center of the island chain, and it links geography to trade, technology, and security. The first island chain is not temporary. It is a structural feature of the Western Pacific. In geopolitics, maps do not decide outcomes, but they decide the terms on which outcomes are contested. And in East Asia, those terms are defined by this chain.